Hey guys, Jester here. A couple weeks ago I did a video on the evolution of combat from basic to second edition, and one of my viewers requested that I demonstrate that evolution with miniatures on a battle mat. So that's what this video is about. I'm doing exactly that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and move my camera into position to be able to show you guys what it is that we're doing here. All right. Okay. So there are quite a few differences between basic and second edition, moving through first edition. What I'm going to start off with is letting you know the differences in the classes with the races. So, like in first and second edition, whether you're an elf, halfling, dwarf, whatever, you can be, pretty much any of the classes. There might be a couple of restrictions here and there, but for the most part, you can be anything. And so you're categorized first by race, but then you're categorized by class, and it's the classes that decide what you do. But in basic, they had it quite a bit different. So our party right here consists of an elf, a dwarf, a halfling, a cleric, and a magic user. Okay. Now in basic, your clerics, fighters, magic users, and thieves were all human. Those were the classes, were cleric, fighter, magic user, and thief, and those four classes were all human. Then you had you had more than three other classes, but for this purpose here, you had three other classes. You had the dwarf class, the elf class, and the halfling class. Now the dwarf class was pretty much a fighter, but dwarf was the class. Elf was the class, but an elf was a combination fighter magic user, and then halfling was a class, and halfling for the most part was he was a fighter, but he had some abilities that thieves would have as far as hiding in shadows and that sort of thing. But overall, he was considered you would consider him a fighter, and so that is the glaring difference between basic first and second edition. So what I've got here is, you'll see, I'm sure you've noticed all the dice that I've got set out here. I have went ahead and pre-rolled everything, almost everything, so that it is all the same for all three editions as we go through this. Now the setup here is the Keep on the Borderlands, the Caves of Chaos, Cave A, which is the Kobold Lair. Okay, you've got the entrance right here. You've got a 10-foot covered pit, trapdoor pit. You've got a room full of 18 giant rats, and then you've got an alcove, a 10 by 10 alcove here that has 6 kobold guards standing guard duty. All the rest of the kobolds is down in that area there. Okay. The Keep on the Borderlands module states that the kobolds have 3 hit points. So that's what I've done here, is put their hit points here. This is the damage that they do per order as they are here in basic, and then the second rank back there is first and second edition, because it's a different set of different type of damage because of the later editions. They have 1 spear each. They will loose their spears, and then if they get into melee, they will fight hand to hand. That's the damage that they'll be fighting hand to hand. You'll notice there's 1 dice missing. That's because after they loose their spears, one of the guards is going to run for help. Okay, so he's not going to be there for the hand to hand. Now, all three editions agree that the damage done by a kobold is 1d4 or weapon of some degree. In basic, it's weapon -1, and in first and second edition, it's just weapon. Okay, so the weapon -1 or weapon for first and second for these guys as the spear, which is a D6. So for basic, it's going to be a D6 minus 1 with a minimum of 1 point of damage done. However, the 1 to 4, again, all three of the additions agree, or for better term, omit, telling you what the 1d4 damage is if they aren't using a weapon. Now, some people would say claws. Being that they are pretty much in the earlier editions described as a dog-like race as opposed to dragonkin, sort of, kind of like a small wormling or something, being that they're akin to like a dog, then me personally, I'm going to say that 1d4 points of damage is from a bite, because their tactics are to swarm you and bring you down, and so in my mind, as they're swarming and bringing you down, they're going to be biting at you, and that's the 1d4 points of damage. So in any case, so that's that. For this scenario here, for this video, the pit trap is not really going to come into effect. There is a percentage chance that the first rank will fall into it. There is a lesser percentage chance that the second rank will fall into it as well. Now, that's kind of an oddity in my mind, because it's a pit. So unless you're running, if you're slowly making your way, and you're in absence of a 10-foot pole, which for this scenario they did not bring a 10-foot pole along with them. For the second rank to actually fall in, and there would have to be the pit here is a hinged pit, because the module states that if you fall in, the pit door closes itself and traps you inside if there's nobody above to help you out. So in my mind, in order for a second rank to have any chance at all falling into the pit, then the hinge would have to be on this passage's side. So the hinge is closest to the party as they're coming in. That way, the weight from the party walking across the pit trap door wouldn't activate the trap door until they're further into or onto the trap door. And that's why the second rank has a percentage chance of falling in as well, because they are at the pivot point basically when the trap door is activated. And so anyway, so there you go as far as that goes. But again, like I said, for this scenario, the pit trap is not going to come into play. They are going to all have made their percentage rolls and avoided the pit trap in some way, shape, or form, depending on the way the combat is going. Okay. Now you will notice here that besides the hit points for the kobolds and the damage done per levels, you've also got the damage, or the hit points here for the characters. Now I've separated most of them into two different dice, because basic has a different hit dice for them, and first and second edition has a different hit dice for them as well. And so in any case, that's what that is. Now the halfling and the magic user, their hit dice doesn't change whether you're basic, first, or second edition. Okay, but for the others it does. So in any case, and that mainly has to do with the fact that what I spoke earlier of the dwarf and the elf having their basically, you have a dwarf class and an elf class as opposed to them being fighters. In first and second edition, they're just going to be fighters, so they're going to use the fighter hit dice, which is a D10. But in basic, the elf hit dice is a D6, and the dwarf hit dice is a D8. So that's the differences there. Okay, so so I've already rolled initiative as well. I rolled a 2 for the kobolds and a 1 for the party, and that's going to be across the boards, basic through second edition. Now, however, there are differences there. In basic and first edition, the kobolds having a 2, which is higher than the party's 1, means that the kobolds have initiative. In second edition, they reversed that. The lower the number in second edition gains the initiative. So for this demonstration, the kobolds will have initiative in basic and first edition, and they will lose the initiative in second edition. All right, here we go. So being that the dwarf and the elf have infravision, and also in basic edition, halflings do not have infravision. So the dwarf and the elf have infravision. They are up in the lead. They are also the two fighters in the party. So that also makes sense as well. The dwarf is armed with two throwing axes, two hand axes. So he can throw the hand axes. They can act as missile weapons. And the elf has a bow. The halfling is armed with a sling, and then the cleric with a melee weapon. The magic user doesn't really matter because he's going to try to avoid melee as much as possible. He might have a dagger if that ever come into effect, possibly a staff, so forth and so on. Now, when I had done the video about the evolution of basic through second edition, in the basic, first let me go over the combat order. So in basic edition, your combat order is you have a movement round, then you have missile fire, then you have magic spells, and then you have melee. Okay, and I've obviously skipped everything up to that point because we're just getting into the nitty-gritty of the combat itself. So we're going to assume that both sides are going to throw down. They're going to go ham. They're going to, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. There's not going to be any negotiation for this video. There's neither side won surprise, so you don't have any of the preliminary stuff leading up to the actual fighting itself. Okay, so we're going to go start from that point on all three levels here. So in basic, you have the movement round, missile fire round, magic spell round, and the melee round. In first edition, they've switched it up a little bit, and you first have the missile fire / spells / turn undead round, then you have the movement round, then you have melee. Okay, second edition, there is no order. You can do any of that at any order you want to, so long as you're able to do so. So that's the differences between the combat order in basic first and second edition. Now, if you went straight by that order in basic, you would have to move first before you could do any of the other stuff. Okay, but on page B28 in the basic rulebook, it gives an example of combat, and on the second column, which I spoke of in my previous video, it says in the second round of combat, the party loses the initiative roll. So the hobgoblins, in that case, won the initiative. The hobgoblins charged through the doorway, but since Morgan, which is a party member, still has her bow out, she may shoot at the charging monsters that start moving 20 feet away from her. Okay, and so so basically, even though her party had lost the initiative, she can still fire her bow, or anybody, if they have a missile weapon, can fire their missile weapon when it's not their round, when it's not their turn, prior to the other side getting to do anything, unless they also have missile weapons. And then, okay, of course, if both sides have missile weapons, then the side that won the initiative will get to fire their missile weapons. Then the losing side will get to fire their missile weapons. Then the rest of the combat begins. Spells are not handled the same way because further into that example of combat on page B28, it states that the DM has to let the magic the player of the magic user know that if he tries to cast the spell, there is a good chance that it will get messed up because the hobgoblins will be able to attack him before he can get his spell off. So missile weapons are handled differently than the spells in basic. But anyway, so but both of these sides have missile weapons, and so this is what we're going to do for basic right here. So they don't have a 10-foot pole. The torches is going to be held by the halfling, the cleric, and the mage. Infravision in the front rank. Infravision will be a little bit messed up because of the proximity to the torchlight, so they are not going to be able to see the kobolds hiding over there in that alcove. When they get up to this spot here, the kobolds do have infravision, and they can also see the torchlight approaching them. So as soon as the party gets to this spot here, they're going to let loose with their spears. Now, they do not have an angle with their spears on the cleric or the mage. So the 6 spears are going to be divvied up 2 apiece on the 3 demi-humans here. Excuse me. Okay, so they loose their spears. They needed a let's see, on the elf, the kobolds need a 13 to hit. His armor class is a 5. They rolled a front rank here. Let's see, actually it's going to be those 2 guys there, so that's going to be an 18 and a 17, and he needed a 13. So both of those hit the elf. They do a total of 4 points of damage. He's got 3 hit points, so he falls. The next 2 guys are going for the halfling, so they got a 12 and a 10. For the halfling, they needed an 11, so they hit with the first attack and missed with the second attack. So the first attack, which is going to be the one in the back row there, he got a 2. Halfling had 5 hit points, so he's now got 3 hit points and is still alive. All right. Then the second 2 there, they rolled an 11 and an 8, and they needed a 14. Let's see, dwarf. They needed a 14 to hit him. The 11 and 8 both missed, so they missed the dwarf. So in their first volley of spears, they've killed the elf and wounded the halfling and did no damage to the dwarf. Now, even though movement is in first thing up, if you have your missile weapons, like I said before, you can loose those before movement. So now they're going to take their movement. The only one that's going to actually move is this guy here. He's going to run for help. So he has a movement of 20. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20. He's going to make to that distance right there to go for help. Now, the dwarf is going to loose his axe. He's going to hold on to the other one for melee. So he's going to attack this first guy here. Okay? He needs to hit the kobold, the dwarf. He needs an 11 or better to hit. And he rolled an 18 to hit. So he hits the guy, and he does. I did not roll the damage for that, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Axe, 1 to 6. He does 1 point of damage. So he does 1 point of damage to the guy there. That is going to be leaving him with 2 hit points. And then he's going to take his movement and rush up to attack. The halfling is going to come over here and wait till somebody comes around a corner and take a pot shot with his sling. The cleric is going to come over here and check on the fallen comrade to see if he's alive or dead, and so it may possibly administer healing. And the mage is going to come up to here and cast a sleep spell. His sleep spell goes off. There is no casting time in Basic Edition, so he casts a spell. He says he casts a spell. It's his turn. He didn't get hit. His spell goes off. He puts to sleep all of these guys because they're all going to fail their saving throw. Because that's what I've deemed for this combat. They fail their saving throw. They're gone. They're all asleep. Dwarf dude there can do a coup de grace on all of them because there is no more combat going on around him. Okay. Now we're going to back things back up for first edition. All right, because we'll get into the what happens next after all of this. All right. Don't forget those 18 giant rats down there. They are going to be attracted by sounds of combat or the trap door falling in or activating. Okay, so first edition's a little bit different. Okay, so same scenario. Kobolds win the initiative. Party comes up. They loose their arrows. This time, Elf has got 6 hit points instead of 3, so he's a little bit more tougher in first and second edition. And let's see. Again, he's got an AC of 5. They're going to hit him on a 15. On a 15 on first edition, so he's a little bit tougher to hit as well. And the two guys on the left hand side there rolled an 18 and a 17, so an 18 and 17 still hits that 15, and so they're going to do damage on him. They did 6 points of damage, so 6 points of damage to his 6 points of damage. He's not lucky today. He falls again. Then again, this guy's going to make his movement, and the dwarf is going to throw his axe. He did 1 point. I can move his hit points back. He did 1 point of damage again to that guy there. He ends up with a 2, and he charges. And we're back into the same situation as we did here. They all fall asleep, yada yada. So there's really no difference there in the outcome between basic and first edition. Okay. So, but that's just for this specific scenario. Things are going to be a little bit different when we get into what's going to happen a little bit later here. But anyway, to continue on, second edition now. Now, remember, second edition, even though the kobolds got a 2 and the party got a 1, second edition, lowest roll wins initiative. So the party has initiative this time. So now, the kobolds see the party coming up. They've got their spears ready. It's not their turn, but they've got their spears ready, so they can again throw. I'm sorry. That's basic rules. That's basic rules, not second edition rules. My bad. Second edition. So, party has initiative. They come up. They're going to creep around here. We are in combat. We are in combat mode, even though the Dungeon Master doesn't tell the players this because he doesn't want to give away the fact that there's an enemy lurking right there. So the elf is going to come here and set up a position right here, guard down this way in case somebody comes towards them. He can loose his arrows. Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing too. In first edition, you only get 1 arrow shot if you have a bow. In first and second edition, you get 2 arrow shots. Okay, so that's a big difference there. So anyway, but he didn't have a chance in first edition to get his 2 shots off because he got, he went down immediately. But anyway, so he's going to sit there and guard. Dwarf is going to come over here. Now, once he steps here, he's now far enough away from the torches where it doesn't affect him, and he can see that there's an enemy there. He's going to shout out to the rest of the party, hey, we got company, and he's going to go straight in, swinging his axes. Okay, he's going to make his attack, and he needs, let's see, in second edition, the kobolds, he's going to hit with a 12, and he rolled an 18, so he hits. First edition, he's only going to get 1 swing with his axes, even though he's wielding 2 of them, and so he does, let's see, with the melee, he does 3 points of damage this time. All right, so he does 3 points of damage with his axe, and that's enough to kill the guy in front of him who only had 3 hit points. So he goes down. All right, and so now, again, you're going to have the halfling come over here because he doesn't want to have any part of that. He's going to take the place of the elf here in guarding. The elf's going to turn around to pop off anybody that comes around with his bow. Again, cleric is going to post up there to cast a spell, as is the wizard. He's going to come in. Now, in second edition, you have casting times. You can do weapon weapon speed and all that if you want to, or you can just do if you've won the initiative and you haven't been hit, you can go ahead and cast your spell off like they did in basic. But if you want to get a little bit more accurate, it'll take longer. You can do the weapon speeds and all that, and that'll come into play. In first edition, the same thing. First edition gets a little wacky with that, so that's why I haven't. I didn't mention I'm not doing weapon speeds in this description because it gets really crazy with first edition and how they calculate all that kind of stuff. But anyway. So he's going to cast the sleep spell again. They're all going to succumb to it. Except now this time, the one guy didn't have a chance to run for help. So this time, all 6 of them are going to succumb to the sleep spell, and Dwarf is going to coup de grace them all. Okay, so there's your difference in first and second edition. In basic and first edition, the elf fell both times, and it was greatly due to the fact that the kobolds won the initiative. Because in second edition they lost the initiative. Had they won the initiative in second edition, it very well would have basically been the same thing. So if they had won the initiative as well in second edition, the initial round here basically would not have changed between the 3 editions whatsoever. But we're going to see how the editions will make things a lot different when we come to this next scenario. Now, don't forget, there's still 18 giant rats that are on the move. Little halfling here is going to see them. He's got his torch, so they are scared of fire, so they're not going to come just charging up at him and ganging, tackling him and all that, and start biting him and killing him and all that, because he does have that torch. But that's still a nuisance and a very, very big threat when you get 18 giant rats against 5 player characters at first level. Okay, so we're assuming now that one guy went and got help, and now him and his buddies have returned, because there's a whole family of kobolds living in this area over here to the east, and so a whole bunch of kobolds are going to come. Now we're going to set 6 of them up here in 2 ranks, just like we had above. Now you've got the distance here between them coming into the passage and where they're posted up. The orange is basic and the blue is first and second edition. Now this pertains to spears, because that's what they're wielding, being thrown. It is the ranges and whether they get a plus to hit, nothing, or a minus to hit. So in in basic, your ranges are 0 to 20 feet is short range, so you're going to get a +1. From 20 to 40, it's medium range, so you're not going to have any adjustment at all. And beyond that, which doesn't matter for this scenario, is long range. You're going to get a -1 to hit. So in first and second edition, it's reduced. It's 0 to 10 is short, 10 to 20 is medium, 20 to 30 is long. So you can see the differences there. Now, as they come down the passageway, they all have different movement rates. Now, in basic, your movement rates for a human and an elf is 40 feet. They normally get 120 feet, the human and the elf does, and it's going to be divided in dungeon setting, you only get a third of that movement. But you can move the full third, okay? So they can move and still attack. So the human and the elf are going to move their 30 feet. So that's 10, 20. So they're going to start here. So that's 10, 20. So they can get all the way there. Now, remember, in basic, they can shoot their arrows first. They can fire throw their spears first, so they're going to get hit with arrows. With the spears before they get to that 30 feet. So there's going to be a whole round of spears thrown during this, and so they're going to get struck before they can get to that 30 feet. The the wizard is also can move that distance too, but he's not going to be stupid. He's going to stay back here and start casting a spell. The halfling can only move. Oh yeah, they can move the full 40 feet. My bad. So yes, that's 10, 20, 30, 40. They're full 40 feet. The halfling can only move 30 feet, so he's going to stop there. So they're going to get their shots off at the halfling while he's coming down, and then when it's their turn, or whether it's his turn in the next round, when he makes the rest of his movement, he's going to get a hit a second time. So he's going to get hit 2 rounds of spears before he ever gets to them. And the dwarf is even worse off. He only can go 20 feet. Okay, so 20 feet there, and then 20 feet to the next round. So he can make it there in 2 rounds just like the halfling, but he'll just get there, whereas the halfling can get there further. He's also going to get 2 full rounds of spears at him before he can make it to melee. So that's basic edition. Now, and that is with either a +1 to hit or no adjustment whatsoever. Now, in first edition, the movement rates are the same. So they're still going to be in those movement rates, but the differences is whether the kobolds get a +1 to hit or no adjustment whatsoever. If they wait until these guys are within this range right here, then they're going to get either a +1 to hit or no adjustment whatsoever, as opposed to in basic that whole thing there. Okay. But still, same thing. Now, I will say this: in first edition, it gave a combat order just like in basic, but this combat order you get to fire missiles first. However, in their example of combat, it did not give any kind of scenario like the one in the basic rulebook did. So there's really no clarification in the first edition rulebooks whether or not you can do what basic allowed the missile people to do. Personally, I am going to go with the fact that basic is the original, and there's pretty much no difference in the combat. Other than they switched movement and missile fire from one going before the other. I'm going to go ahead and say, and this is just me personally, that you can still do that in first edition. Okay. Just because there was no clarification in the rule books, it didn't say you couldn't. Basic had a combat order just like first edition did, but their example just totally contradicted their actual order of combat. So I'm going to say that they took that same philosophy and transferred it over to first edition as well. But again, that's just me. That's not per the rules as written. So you can handle it however you deem fit. But in my scenario, it's going to be the same way. They're going to get 2 rounds of missile fire off at the dwarf and the halfling, just the 1 off at them, and then it's going to be melee. All right, but then of course you've got a whole den of kobolds back here just waiting to replace the ones up front there. Okay, now you've got second edition. Second edition, the movements here, or the distances here, are no different than first edition. So it's going to be still a no adjustment there, +1 to hit here, and if they fire at them as soon as they enter here, it's going to be a -1 to hit. But those distances are the same. However, movement is for the people here are completely different. You now have humans and elves have 120 feet of movement, just like they normally do in basic and first edition, but they can move up to half their movement rate as opposed to a third. So they can move 60 feet, okay? And the dwarves, who are normally 60 feet. They can move half, so they're 30 feet. So now they are up here, and the halflings are also 60 feet, and they can move up there. So now we've got the dwarf at not as much of a disadvantage. Again, magic users are going to hang back because he's not going to get pummeled with spears. He's going to cast his spells long distance as much as possible. And so he's going to try to get something off that will be able to reach them at that distance and not affect his comrades there. And so anyway, with the party winning, if the party wins the initiative, then they can make their movement, which will put them up there and attack the kobolds without the kobolds being able to get a missile fire off at them first, like they can in basic for sure, and in my opinion, first edition as well. Okay, so that's the huge difference there. The kobolds don't have the advantage of that long hallway unless they actually win the initiative. Okay, but that's not the case in basic, and in my opinion, also not the case in first edition. So, you can see why in the follow-up video to the evolution of combat from basic through second edition, which was the why Keep of the Borderlands is so awesome. In that video, I explained how the designers of the module were just crazy good in their design of the cavern system in the Caves of Chaos, where you had all of the kobolds, or not just kobolds, all of the monsters that lived in the caves, all of them had some form of missile weapons, whether it be spears or bows or whatever. And there was always these long passages, or there were switchbacks and choke points and everything, where it just made it almost impossible for a party of first level characters to survive. Even in this kobold lair here, there's a chance that they get ambushed by 8 kobolds outside the cave before they ever get into the cave mouth. So you've got that possibility, and then you've got the pit trap, to hamper at least 1 or 2 of them if they fall in. And so now 1 or 2 of them are trapped down in the pit while their comrades are battling for their lives at top between 6 kobolds and 18 giant rats, and it's just insane. This is the first level module, and so you can just see how crazy hard the Caves of Chaos from the Keep of the Borderlands is, and why it makes, in my opinion, Keep of the Borderlands just such an awesome module. And so anyway, guys, that's about all I've got concerning what I had talked about in my last couple of videos. Thanks, DM Ray, for suggesting that I do this. I normally, you'll just see me sitting at my desk, sitting in my chair there, just going over D&D things. But he suggested that, or asked that I do this here. So I always like to, if possible, do what my followers suggest or would like to see. And so if there's something that you would like to see, make sure you leave it in the comment section. If there's anything that I got wrong when explaining all of this, please leave that in the comment section as well, because I haven't played basic and first edition in 30 years. I've been playing second edition for a very, very long time, so that's what I'm used to. I had to make all of this diagram stuff here with all the charts and all that just for my own personal benefit, so I could keep everything kind of straight in my head. So if I screwed something up, let me know. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, notification bell, the like, and share to all your friends. Make sure they can enjoy this stuff as well. Appreciate everybody watching, and until next time, and as always, see you soon.